It's an upliftment, and at the same time I get power from it. Sometimes it's an escape as well, you know, like things what's going on today and everything. Music is also a medicine and a healer, so to listen to music every day kind of is a medicine for my inner soul. That's how I see it, yeah.
I love music. I can't imagine a day without music. It talks of emotion and feeling that maybe I would find difficult to express without it.
You know, at 65 years old, music still gets me out of bed, man. It's not a hobby, it's not a job, it's my life. And I really do believe it's the elixir of life. I think that when you start getting stuck in your soundtrack, you know, music was better in my day kind of thing, that's when you're old. So, yeah, for me, it keeps me in touch with the now.
It's emotive, you know, it touches you. Music kind of lets you escape, it's a dream, it's exploratory, it's immersive, and it's, I think it's that immersion and that emotiveness around music that I think is so powerful. And when you see the effect of music on people when they're all together, it's incredibly powerful.
It's this pool that you get to swim in when it's not about one band. It's actually about a whole universe of sound.
It can dictate your mood and it can sort of move your day in a whole different direction.
I think it's those moments. It could be with your mates, it could be with a few thousand people, it could be with like 100 people in a club, but when it's right, it's like, it's really right.
Standout gigs. Well, I'm as old as rock and roll, so there's been a few, but I guess I'd have to flag up seeing The Who in 1971 when I was 14 years old. I was at school, a rumour went around school, there's some band playing at the Young Vic, free gig, and sure enough, after school I went along and walked in to see The Who, doing what you call a full production rehearsal. So they're not going through the motions, we're talking dry ice, lasers, Townsend doing his windmill, and I was like 15 feet from the front of the stage. I could see the whites of Keith Moon's eyes, man. And that was it was all open for me because it opened a door to this world that I knew I wanted to be part of.
When I finally got into thinking of The Clash and what track I would bring here, obviously I thought it's got to be London Calling. It's such a great song, but it also means so much to so many. Well, me, that whole album actually changed my life. I mean, it meant something. It actually was like a slap, like wake up. You know, you have to pay attention. And that's kind of what The Clash also were good at, was having a good fun time, but also getting you to wake up and do something. Because it is about, we all have to do something, and it should be positive.
I was very lucky to have been taken to New York with the company I was working with in the mid to late 80s. It was the first big long distance trip I'd ever been on. I went to New York. The owner of the company took me to the Copacabana in New York City to see the Village People live. DJs were fantastic before. There was 2 hours of DJs beforehand, and every other track was Barry Manilow singing at the Copacabana. So it was an interesting evening, but utterly brilliant.
At Reading Festival in like '96, Underworld were on at the same time as the Stone Roses, and the Stone Roses were sort of like falling apart, and then we literally started at the same time. And I remember going to see the Stone Roses and being like, oh, this is terrible, this is going to be really great for us, and our tent got busier and busier and busier. I just remember standing at the back with the guys from the label, and then a roadie climbed this massive tent pole in the middle of this sort of huge tent, and like, with something on his shoulder, and we were like, what on earth is he doing? It was really high. And he went all the way up, and then he just let this massive banner unfold with like Underworld on it, and the whole place just roared, because they were just like, gee, he's gonna kill himself or something. And then actually it was like, then it was really like game on, and more people came, and that was pretty good.
A really seminal experience, or a really seminal club, would be the Blue Note in Hoxton in the 90s, which was when Hoxton was a very different place to what it is currently. Solid Steel, Cold Cut used to run the night there, just with amazing guests, and it was the mix of the music, the room, the crowd, the sound system, kind of everything that happened at that club in that era, Metalheads and Anoka. It was just, and I just remember every week getting there, and there'd be a massive queue, And then there'd be a little queue, and you sort of say, oh, I'm on the guest list. And they're like, yeah, get in the long queue. So everyone was on the guest list because everyone was sort of involved in the Ninja Tune scene. So yeah, that was where I was really I was totally taken with it.
Subterranean, off Portobello Road under the West Way on Acklam Road. It was an interesting place because I remember trying to go to see a Madness gig there, and I got halfway up Acklam Road and there were so many skinheads, and I was so terrified of this National Front sort of skinhead movement, thinking, hang on, I'm going to see my favourite band. That I turned around and didn't go, and then a few years later I found myself in the same spot, and it was a club which Vince Power, who owned the Mean Fiddler, had opened. So we'd go there 2 or 3 times a week until I eventually started running it for a few nights myself.
7 years ago at Boomtown Festival, when we did a show with Julian Marley, and this was like 11 o'clock in the morning, and there was 10,000 people at the stage at 11 o'clock in the morning, and that was just another sight to see, and that was another uplifting moment.
One night, Channel 1 Sound System played at Cambridge University. Got there, played whatever, left Cambridge University at about 4 o'clock in the morning. Came back, and what I didn't tell my missus at the time, I got tickets to go see Bob Marley and the Wailers. Crystal Palace. I said, put some clothes on. We're going out. Where? I said, don't worry where we're going. All the fresh, get something to eat. I said, yes, go. Even then, she didn't know where we was going. I said, no, we're going out to Crystal Palace. So here's the ticket. I'll see Bob Marley and the Wailers. And that was it. That was one of the best gigs I've ever been to. And when you hear Bob Marley and the Wailers, we resonate, and Family Man, we resonate through the Crystal Palace Bowl. The PA system, what sounded then that night, was unbelievable. And I said to myself, that is how I want sound systems to sound. Not beating up eardrums, just rolling through like grass. And that's how you get your teeth. So Bob Marley and the Wailers was the one.